Hello and welcome back to Going Places New You Wow, where we celebrate women's epic achievements in the community and at home. Today, we are honored to have as guest Nancy Sharp, resilience keynote speaker and trainer, award-winning author of amazing works, including Because the Sky is Everywhere and Both Sides of Now. She's driven to help others shift their limiting beliefs so the impossible becomes possible. Thank you, Nancy, for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you. I am great, and I'm really excited to be with you today.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, we always start with a little bit of an icebreaker.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask if you can share something about yourself that most people do not know, a hidden gem.
I love to listen to books on tape. I have discovered the gift of listening to books on tape the past couple years, and I feel like I've discovered a whole secret world.
Excellent. Do you have any favorites?
Oh, I have too many to even think about. Too many to recall, really, because I listen to fiction, I listen to nonfiction, sometimes I listen to classics. I will say, though, I have become more astute at discerning when I really like the narrator. But I just love to disappear into another world. Also, I'm a bookie, right? This is
nice.
what I do. I mean, I read a lot. I'm a writing coach. I'm a speaker. I live in words. So I always am reading multiple things at one time. So
Beautiful. No, that's wonderful. And, it makes me think, as a child, my punishment was being told to come out of the bedroom, because I was always in there in a book. And it's like, get out here and watch some TV. But I mean, you can travel in books. So I think that's phenomenal. Let's speak to that.
Yes. And it's difficult with this younger generation, right? Because they have their head on a screen all the time. And it's hard.
There's
so I am old.
Technology.
I am tactile. I really like the weight and the feel of a book in my hand. Beautiful. I just do. I will read online. I mean, I'm in front of the screen enough, but my preference truly is to read a book or to hear a book.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. We hear your little fur baby back there.
Okay,
What's the name? No, you're fine.
My dog's name is Levi Joseph.
Oh.
He is a Havanese, and he's very cute, but he thinks he rules the roost.
Don't they all?
Right. A neighbor walks by with the dog, forget it. A delivery person comes, forget it.
He's just doing his job, keeping you safe.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're okay. But we do want to know, what is one of your fondest childhood memories?
What is one of my fondest childhood memories? We used to go to Cape Cod some summers with some cousins. And I remember just how beautiful and how fun it was to make sand castles and to sort of bury each other a little bit in the sand. And to go to the comic book store and to get Bazooka Joe bubblegum. And I just loved it. It was just really, really fun. And it was something that we did not every summer, but for a handful of summers. So I grew up on the East Coast. So
okay, wonderful. And we're aware, some in our listening audience, that you had a unique roller coaster experience of birthing twins, then finding out your then husband's cancer returned, all in the span of the same day.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit, how were you able to cope with that?
Well, it was wild. As a matter of fact, the situation you described became really, they inspired the title for my first book, Both Sides Now, a story of love, loss, and bold living, because I truly was experiencing life and death in the same day. So essentially what happened is, my first husband, Brett, had been diagnosed with a brain tumor, but he had the kind of tumor that typically affects children when their age is 5 and under. And at least a good percentage of those children live. So it was very rare for him to have had this cancer. And we just didn't know what his prognosis would be. He was doing really well, is the thing. And he had the surgery, he had a year of treatment. There were no signs of cancer. He was feeling really great. He was traveling, getting promoted. Life was happening all around us. And, look, we lived in New York City at the time. Anything could happen. You could step off of a city street and, God forbid, get struck by a bus or a taxi, right? Or a reckless messenger on a bicycle. So what are you going to do? You're going to stop living your life, or you're going to go forward? So we decided, with the help of, really with some spiritual guidance, I will say, from some friends, family, that, we were going to go forward and start a family, because truly, as his uncle, who's an oncologist, said to us, the only proof of cure is life.
Look at that.
Yeah. So we had to, it's a little more complicated, clearly, because of his cancer. So we had to go through in vitro. It took a few times. The third time was a charm, because that's when I got pregnant with twins. And then, yes, on the exact day that our babies were born, we had a daughter we named Rebecca, and a son we named Casey. On the exact day that we became parents, Brett received a call from his neuro-oncologist at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, telling him that the routine MRI he'd taken a few days prior, the one that had been clean for 2 years, was back, and there was cancer everywhere. And I, will never forget sort of the heap of his body as it collapsed on the hospital bed. And I began to scream. And, it was terrible.
I can imagine.
So, and what followed after that is that the babies who were born prematurely got stronger and stronger, and he got sicker and sicker, and eventually, some 2.5 years later, he died. And in the end, it was his death, I would say, was both merciful and anguishing. And that too was at both sides now, because it was so hard. It was so hard those last few years. And, it was just hard. But yes, it was life and death, illness and health, joy and sorrow, motherhood and widowhood, everything at once. And what that experience taught me, among so many other things, is that sometimes life does really hand you lots of different polarities.
Right.
And you have to learn how to hold both sides, really all sides, and to, not go down one track or not completely go down the other track, but you have to sort of learn to be in the midst of both, because both are true.
I love that. And it's really too, it sounds like owning your path, because as we dwell on this subject of woman empowerment, there isn't a single woman out there who doesn't face astronomical decisions, and they never show up on a scheduled basis.
Right.
You wake up thinking your day is just going to be another day. And when you look back at what happened, you're like, now? And why? And there's all these things.
Yeah. And, also most people are not going to have the kind of stark dualities that I had on the same day.
Right.
But I am certain most women, right, have joyful, happy, positive things that happen in the course of the day, and disappointments, setbacks, upsets in the course of the day.
Right.
And we become more resilient when we learn to integrate, right, the hard things with the good things. And that allows us to go forward.
Agreed. Yeah, it's like striking that balance. Never perfection, but being able to handle both.
Well, and I call it sort of the gray, right? So we have to learn not to be so tied to black and white, right? Because that is, that's okay for certain things. But I think the more we move along in life, the more professional and personal experiences we accrue, the more we recognize there's a whole lot of gray.
Amen.
A whole lot of gray. And if we are not learning to be okay in the gray, it's going to be difficult for us to accept the bumps that, and there's going to be bumps that happen. So
it's inevitable.
I mean, this took me a long time to learn this lesson, because I had to live it, and I lived it for, almost a decade. And then I had to process it and distill it, and that became Both Sides Now, and later, Because the Sky is Everywhere, which is a children's picture book, by the way. But and that's led to speaking all over the country to many different businesses and groups about resilience. But you know, it's the kind of thing that evolves, and we are always evolving. But this notion of rejecting, as Jim Collins, who's a well-known management consultant, he's written many, many books called, some of which are Good to Great and Built to Last. He calls this rigid concept of black and white the tyranny of the or.
Mm.
And he says, and I really love this, he says, builders of greatness, they have to reject the tyranny of the or and embrace the genius of the and.
Look at that.
Both are true. And if we want to be resilient, if we want to tap into our most creative selves, our boldest selves, our most empowered selves, you got to be okay with being in that gray zone.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I think it's phenomenal. And you're definitely to be applauded for taking the time to put the paper to pen to share the story, because that's the thing. Women are walking around not realizing they do have a tremendous story within them. And if you get to a place where you feel no one needs to hear that, your story could save a life,
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that is what motivated me to write my story.
Nice.
I was not doing it for therapeutic reasons. I get asked that question a lot.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't want to write the book because I thought it would make me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the book because I felt I wanted to serve other people, and that maybe I had something to say in a frame, in a way that would resonate with someone else. So I get all kinds of feedback about my books, but some of the best and the most special feedback I get is when people who have completely different walks of life will email me or call me or approach me at an event and say, you know what, your story is my story.
Look at that.
Because loss and living in resilience, they're universal, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, the players, the circumstances can be different, but it's universal. So this is what it means to be human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's almost like the volume knob on the old school radios, where sometimes it's a little more quiet and silent. And there's other times that there's this stark all the way up and you think you're going to go deaf from the contrast, but you're still here. You're still here. And that speaks volumes. Yeah. It's been said that for most people, the number one fear is speaking in front of an audience. So can you tell us what led you to choose stepping into that public speaking arena?
So funny, because I was, in my early life, I always wanted to be an actress.
Okay.
I don't know. And I actually was a theater major at Northwestern. But the good thing about that was that it was a liberal arts degree. And so my whole world opened up, and I decided pretty early on that I actually did not really want to be on stage. And I was really more interested in living in words in a different way. It's funny. I began my career in public relations and doing a lot of writing. I fell into public relations without even really knowing what it was.
Look at that.
I always liked people. I was good with people. I'm a yes person. I still believe, being a yes person leads you places. So when I wrote my book, my first book, Both Sides Now, what happened is that I started to get a lot of invitations to speak and to tell my story. And and that's really what happened. And it was published in 2014. I just started speaking to groups, and one thing led to another and another. And I've just really enjoyed it. And it is hard, but I also had to get beyond, and I think this is true for a lot of women. I don't have a real need to be center stage. Mm-hmm. I really don't. I really am more, and I've been a speechwriter for a number of years too. So I really am happy writing words that make other people look good. And like some people, they love it. They love to get out there and entertain, and they're salesy and they're showy and they're doing tricks and they're juggling and whatever they're doing. That is not me.
Look at that.
Now, I am much more comfortable just being real, I would probably be great in a fireside chat. I do the speaking, but I'm very authentic. And so it's taken me some time to figure out what I like, what feels right to me, who my audiences really should be. I
Hmm.
speak to a lot of women's groups. Um, you know, Women's groups of all different kinds. There's Levi again.
That's okay.
The Max is going by. I'm sorry. So yeah, and it's you can work on it, but I had to get past. I don't know if I think this is probably true for other people. Unless you have so much confidence,
Hmm.
right, that you could just get out there and you've got that sales mentality. That's not my thing.
Hmm.
I had to do a lot of self training to work on myself, to know that, what, it's not about me. It's about the value I'm bringing other people, and
Amen.
how can I serve other people. And as soon as I carry that message in my heart, in my soul, I'm good.
Look at that.
And
Look
when
at
I
that.
connect, success for me is about engaging my audience. It's knowing I've reached somebody. I'm
Hmm.
connecting with people in a genuine, authentic way. That's
Hmm.
what matters.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Better to stand in a room full of 10 people that you stir their heart than to be in front of 10,000 that are
Yeah, I'm
just
not a,
stone faced. Yeah.
I am not a speaker who is going to get hired to speak in front of 10,000 people. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But,
Gotcha.
I mean, I have spoken in front of audiences that have been like 600, which is a big audience. And I speak to a lot of corporate audiences too. So it just depends. It just depends.
And
But
you hit on two very important points. First, the element of being genuine. I feel like, unfortunately, in society, as women, we face so many pressures, and there's this element of who are you? And if someone isn't able to just stand in front of the mirror and really connect to who they really are,
right.
how can you serve that purpose to others? So, that work that you described, that
Yeah.
processing, it takes time. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's a really layered process, just like
Yes.
writing. I mean, speaking and really figuring out what your message is. And by the way, it's important to let the message shift over time too. I know a lot of professional speakers, they deliver the same program for 20 years.
Wow.
That just I don't I mean I that makes me apoplectic at the
You're like, how?
right. I just don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that. And just like writing is a very layered process, right?
Mhm.
So we have to always be learning and to be curious about the world and to be able to reflect that in our communication, both on the stage, as I like to say, and also on the written page. So
Yeah, I agree. Technically, we're all just works in progress.
correct,
So if you're
correct.
standing in the same place you were 10 years ago, you've got to question that.
I
Yeah.
think so. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, that is like the antithesis of being resilient. That's staying stuck. That's no good.
There you go. Can you tell us a little bit more about one of your heart projects, the guided autobiography workshops?
Yeah, guided autobiography is a method of reflecting on meaningful life experiences. It was
Nice.
actually started in the 1970s by a well known psychologist and gerontologist at USC in Southern Colorado in the 1970s. But since then, it is used all over the world for audiences young and old. I mean, just there's so much diversity in the curriculum. I love it. I got trained before the pandemic, before anybody had even heard of COVID-19. But I wasn't doing anything with it yet. I was sort
Hmm.
of, it was sort of marinating a little bit in my brain as to, okay, how am I going to implement this into my training programs? How am I going to use this in some of my workshops and some of my coaching? And then when the pandemic happened and I began to see and to read the feedback, the communication thread from fellow instructors, and you could just see what was happening, that people were hungry to make meaning and to
Wow.
get connected and to build community and to find ways to creatively engage with each other. I thought, this is the sign. This is the time. So I just started teaching guided autobiography workshops called Tell Your Resilience Story. I started over a year ago now, and they've really taken off. And they're over Zoom. I cap my programs at less than 8 people, so they're really intimate experiences. And we come together as a small group and we look at universal themes that we can reflect upon. Themes like, what are the turning point moments of our lives? What are those moments when we've really tapped into our power, right? Health, we look at family. And it's a really wonderful, rich journey.
Sounds
So
beautiful.
it has been, I must say, it has been transformative for me personally and professionally, because I feel I'm really doing what I was meant to be doing, which is helping people leave their mark in the world and to own their stories in a whole new way. Because when we own our stories, we own our lives. And you said something earlier about maybe some people aren't always certain that they have something worth
Mm-hmm.
saying or
Mm-hmm.
celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, everybody has a story. And you don't realize you have stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plural, right? Until you start to see them in a different way and make the connections that we make in guided autobiography. Some people have a desire to leave those stories as a legacy for their loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be starting an ethical wills class in the fall, just because a lot of people
Excellent.
are interested in
Big
that.
need.
But
Yeah.
yes, but other people they just want the experience of reflecting. Some people, they might want to do an article or blogs or potentially a book, but you don't have to, and you don't need any writing experience, which is also important. So it's really, really wonderful. And I feel like I've become a story muse.
Look at
Uh,
that.
I've become a story muse, and I'm holding everybody's stories, and it's wonderful.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to share this video and like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at New You Wow. Until next time, stand tall in your power and remember, your belief in yourself is your superpower.